Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast. John here. Joined once again by the main man himself, Michael Angelillo. Michael, do we have all shoelaces taken away, belts, sharp objects, anything to do damage with
Uh,
on your persons?
the current closest thing that could maybe inflict some damage is a relatively. Oh no, there is a pair of scissors here. We have some scissors. We have a tweezer. Um, but we should be all right, I guess. Man, since the last time we spoke, we were like, "Oh, there might not be anything to talk about besides the Super Bowl." And we were like,
You
"Oh, but
said
the
that, not
trade
me.
deadline."
I
We were
just gotta
like,
keep my crap
"Oh, but
shut.
the trade deadline. We could talk with the NBA trade deadline. The Sixers will surely do some things to help out."
Well, they certainly did things.
How naive were we just 4 days ago? How about it, man? So, do we wanna open up with the Sixers? Should we open up with the Sixers? That feels right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Let's open
So,
up with the Sixers.
yeah, so the Sixers, well, they were active at the NBA trade deadline, but
Kinda.
active as in making themselves worse.
Yeah, they trade Jared McCain to the Oklahoma City Thunder for the Rockets' first round pick this season,
Which is probably
and
going to be the back 7 or 8 picks of the first round.
yeah,
I'm
odds
assuming.
are it's not gonna be a lottery pick. There is at this point, I guess, rooting for the Rockets to keep losing, fall into the play-in, hopefully lose in the play-in, and, at this it's like you're rooting for a Kevin Durant injury at this point if you want them to fall into the play-in, but more likely than not, it's not gonna be a lottery pick, like you said, John, it'll be picking in the back 7-ish, in the NBA draft, and then also 3 second-round picks that are, like, some swaps, whatever, not as important, just assets. And they traded Jared McCain, and initially, it just sucks because how much he was really loved and fun, he was loved by his teammates, clearly. He had, like, 9 players post some sappy Instagram story for. Tyrese Maxey is almost crying when he's talking about it the next day. Um, Embiid was pretty upset. You could see the look on his face, and the fans were hit pretty hard by it because it's tough, man. It's really, really tough. I'm not saying that he was going to become some superstar and whatever, but he did have a handful of games as a rookie where he was putting up numbers that were to the likes of no one else in NBA history besides guys like Steph Curry and guys like Michael Jordan. And not to say he was on his way to become the next GOAT or whatever, but if it was easy enough to do that, a lot more guys would be in those groupings that aren't very good. You know what I mean? You would see a lot more one-year wonders of rookies that came in hot and then fell off after their career, took off. So, I do think they sold low on him even as much as the GM disagrees, but that was the first move that ultimately got them far enough under the tax where you felt like, okay, well, they're going to hopefully add something else. And they didn't do anything else except salary dump Eric Gordon. And with those two moves, they didn't do anything else. And that as a result, they converted Dominic Barlow, which is great, very important player for this year's team. And you'll get him next year as well. But you definitely didn't need to do the way he didn't need to go about it the way that you did to make this happen. And they're gonna have one more roster spot open that feels like they're not going to convert, Jabari Walker at this point based off what Daryl Morey said, and they're gonna be active on the buyout market, as Morey said, to find a wing and a guard. And unfortunately, the buyout market kinda blows this year. It's one of the worst ones in comparison to recent years. If I had to guess on some names that they could get, I'm thinking Haywood Highsmith could be the forward that they get. and then they might be praying that like Russell Westbrook gets bought out and make him the guard that they add or something like that. But listen, what is so what's so frustrating about this trade, I think, is that it was done according to Daryl Morey. What makes this whole thing worse? If you ask the fans why they do this, why they do this, the easiest answer and the most accurate answer is because they wanted to get under the tax. They wanted to get under the tax, so they had to shed some salary. And McCain was unfortunately the casualty for that. And what is really frustrating is you took your team that had two pretty glaring weaknesses outside of like the injury risk that you have built in with your stars. But the two biggest weaknesses on the team are defensive rebounding as a whole, really, but especially defensive rebounding and 3-point shooting. They're two weakest elements of their game at this point. And to everyone's expectation, we were expecting to maybe get an upgraded backup center, and we were expected to get someone that could shoot, whether that be and like more likely than not, it would have been a wing. And instead, they acquired nobody, and they trade away like probably their second best shooter on the team in terms of like ceiling, and also a guy that has legitimate promise. And then you go out the next game and you shoot 20% from three as a team, and your backup center is a minus 17 in like 12 minutes or how many ever minutes a Dembona played against the Lakers, and you choke away a game that you were pretty much in control of for like 3.5 quarters, and then you choked it away and you lost the tough one. And it's just like, wow, you really could have used some extra shooting, could have used maybe some better rebounding, whatever. And then you look at Quentin Grimes, who is essentially he's a big reason as to why they traded McCain, a guy that they believe in as a higher floor than McCain. Sure, I'll give you that because he's a better defender and he's a little bit bigger and can guard some more positions. Um, but you look at what he does in 27 minutes and he takes two shots. 27 minutes, 1 for 2 from the field, one of which being that really great, cool dunk that he had, and then he missed 1 3. And it's like, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm not as super high on Quentin Grimes as the team is. I think he's a nice player, but I do think there are limitations to his ceiling. And this just felt like a really short-sighted move, to be honest with you. It felt like a move to get under the tax, and you're focused on the floor of players as opposed to the ceiling. And if Daryl Morey, I think, truly believed in this team as a contender, you would have added something else to make it better. So what Daryl Morey says in his press conference yesterday is that they traded Jared McCain with the hope and expectation to use those assets to acquire a player, but quote, nothing materialized. Two like major red flags. Like there are two options on why you would say something like this. One, you're just blatantly lying, which is what I think is probably more true than not. Because the other option is you're just a terrible GM. Like, and we think what we think of Morey has some good decisions, bad decisions, good draft, whatever. But how the process of trading a young player for picks with the intent of using said return to make another move in like a 1 day span because it's the trade deadline. This isn't like a whole offseason to call up teams and make this work. You need to have something pretty much in place before you make the McCain trade, or else you were just completely okay with dumping McCain for nothing. How can you make a trade with the hope of acquiring someone else and making another trade without actually putting something together on the phone with another GM where, yeah, just a few hours after they trade McCain, they make another trade and acquire someone with the picks that they just got? And it's like the fact that they didn't do that, to me, that's either horrible process, very stupid GMing to do that. Imagine the Eagles. Imagine they trade AJ Brown and how he doesn't have essentially just doesn't have a plan to acquire a receiver. They didn't scout receivers heavily in the draft. They didn't call other teams like the Saints for Chris Olave or anything like that. We would be like, what an idiot you are, Howie. What are you doing? This is that. This is that. You trade away a player with the intent of acquiring someone, but you didn't actually have something formidable put in place. So you do nothing. And now you're left with just simply making your team worse. Full stop. They made the team worse at the trade deadline, where we already were like, they're good. They got a high ceiling, but they need a little bit more to, I think, push them into a more comfortable floor. And they don't do that. So now you're just fully reliant on your stars. And it's fine to an extent because, again, we still believe in the team, but you made them worse for a spot that now you only have 3 guards that you can trust handling the ball. Yeah, Watford can do it a little bit as a forward, but it's like you have 3 guards on your roster that play in a rotation. You need a 4th guard, especially a 4th guard that could get hot the way McCain could. Like we talked about on this podcast plenty. We could easily envision winning a playoff game because Jared McCain hits 3 threes in the second half of a game to swing a momentum shift, something like that, or hits 5 threes in game 3 and it's like, "Oh my god, the McCain game. Holy shit, what a great time." And you trade him away to the champions while their best player is going to be hurt for a month. So he's probably going to get some sort of run. And you did it where you sold low. So what am I getting at with all this? As stupid as the GMing is, as much as it hurts to see McCain go because we finally saw him maybe getting his stride back, as frustrating as that all is, what am I getting at? I think what Daryl Morey actually believes, because listen, Josh Harris makes the call and says, get under the tax. I don't care how it's done. It's up to Daryl Morey to do that without like killing the morale of the team, without making the team significantly worse, without whatever. Him going about it this way to me screams that he didn't view Jared McCain as highly as most of the fan base and clearly most of the league felt about him. And, like, in practice, I guess that's okay, that's your talent evaluator, but you did draft him in the first round, and the argument there is that he was the best player available in what is turning out to maybe be a weak draft class, okay, but he was never sold on McCain the prospect, he was never sold on McCain the player, and why that is frustrating is because I do think there is a pretty high ceiling in there and was, like, the 3rd most important part of your future moving forward behind Maxey and Edgecombe, that you just kinda mortgaged it a little bit. And I think he views a guy like Jared McCain in a very similar aspect to how Landry Shamet was viewed. I'm not saying he is Shamet or whatever, but we were all excited when we got Landry Shamet. He was hitting those threes, and we're like, "Oh my god, this is so cool. This is so fun." And then he gets traded in the package for Tobias, and we're like, "Damn, that's tough. We trade away Shamet. Oh my god." But the fact of the matter is, Shamet's bounced around the league's been on a handful of teams, and he's been a fine role player. He's kind of getting better as his career goes on, but he's nothing more than just a role playing guard that comes off the bench, can shoot well, can get really hot from shooting, but that's about it. Not good defensively, not a great playmaker, not great with the ball in his hands. And I think that's just how Daryl Morey viewed McCain, a great shooter that can come off the bench, but that is it. And just where I disagree is I think his offensive ceiling is significantly higher than just a bench 3-point shooter. I think that his offensive gravity as a shooter and a ball handler is a lot higher than most of these like bench shooters that just can come off and shoot threes and that's it. I do think that, even though he's small, he's got some mass to him that can improve, I think, defensively. And I think as a playmaker, he's decent and his basketball IQ is through the roof, where I think that carries a lot of weight that most just average bench players don't really have. Like he's not just like Marco Bellinelli out there, is what it was like he's being treated like. And, it's just really upsetting. It really, really is. He was a fan favorite. It was someone that was very excited to have on this team for a while. And I just feel like they sold low on him. Even at the absolute worst case scenario, you keep him and he is what you think he is, which is a bench shooting guard. It's something that will never ever be like useless in the NBA and especially in today's NBA. So, with that trade going down, the Sixers are going to be what they are. They're going to add a couple guys to the buyout market. And honestly, for me personally, a lot of eyes are going to be on Quentin Grimes. If Quentin Grimes is going to go into the postseason, continue like he's been in a shooting slump for like 2 months now, and if he continues to be in a shooting slump through the playoffs and has a bad playoff series or whatever, however long they last in the playoffs, I'm gonna be pissed. I really, really am gonna be pissed because you kind of, he was asking for 25 million and you were like, "Listen, we think you're worth this. Go show us that you're not." And he's not able to show that he's worth 25 million. So now you're gonna come crawling back and take the contract we wanted to offer you in the first place. But as the games go by after the first like month or so of the season, I haven't been totally enamored with him to want to commit to him long term like that.
Yeah, Quentin Grimes looked well when he was the primary option when the entire team was basically the Sixers basically shut the season down back in like March of last year.
Yeah.
Grimes was playing really well because he was the primary option. And yes, we know how the NBA is when teams are bad near the end of the year. There's like,
Mhm.
it basically turns into, I don't want to say the preseason, but it almost kind of is. It's if you're not in the playoff hunt, then everyone's playing all their young guys. So it's almost like a G League game.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Quentin Grimes was like the go-to guy at that point. Yeah, Michael, I agree with a lot of what you just said. To me, the GM stating, "Oh, he was." I think for a couple reasons, it makes him look bad for a couple of reasons. One, saying he's not that good, only a little bit more than a year after you drafted me. Questions: one, then why'd you take him in the first place? If he was so like mediocre or so
I
mid,
just think it's was best player available in a draft they weren't super excited about. You know what
well,
I mean?
that well, then what? Then you should have just traded the pick for McCain. Then if you picked McCain, then you should have traded him during the draft. Like that's to me, it's like the thing with Daryl Morey is he comes off like a total know it all. He's very arrogant.
Mhm.
And honestly too, let's just throw Nick Nurse in there because I don't think Daryl Morey made that evaluation by himself. I don't think Nick Nurse would be happy right now especially with the injury to Paul George, where he needs outside shooting, where like you just said, one of your best potential outside shooters just got traded for basically for nothing that can help them right now. And
Yeah, it's they if Nurse felt more high about McCain, he easily could have stepped in and been like, "Listen, man, we're not trading him, especially for the stretch run here." And
just
like,
trade Drummond and Gordon to get under the tax. We'll just not make any moves.
yeah, it's just it's so frustrating because they do have to operate under Josh Harris's thumb as well. That pedophile asks them to get under the tax um,
Allegedly.
every year, except for the year that they acquired like James Harden. And like it almost the way that Maury talked about it came across a little Phillies-ish, where it's like, the Phillies were willing to really break the bank for a guy like Bo Bichette. But besides Bichette, they weren't really interested in pushing the envelope in terms of their payroll. And the way that Maury expressed it was like, listen, I need to if we were willing to go into the tax, which I'm like, yeah, right. But said I couldn't put together a deal or find anyone out there that was worth going into the tax for. And it's like I think where I'm just the most frustrated is that this was the easiest trade deadline in the world to not only get under the tax like your cheap piece of shit owner wants you to do, but also to improve the team. It was very, very easy, like you said, to dump Drummond and dump Eric Gordon, put yourself under the tax, and then acquire somebody, whether it's another backup center that's making dirt cheap money or anybody. Like we talked about Day'Ron Sharp, talked about Eve Misi, like any of those guys that would have actually helped as a backup center or another shooter. And you still could have stayed under the effing tax. You still could have been there underneath the tax while improving the team. But instead, you did nothing. You made your team worse for the sake of nothing. And it's like we're not talking about it, but it is like a miracle, truly like Jesus walking on water, the fact that Joel Embiid is playing at such a high level again. That surgeon, whatever he's cooking up, knock on wood, it's unbelievable that the Embiid that we saw, the end of a couple years ago and the beginning of last year, and like even in the Olympics where he showed spurts but was barely moving around, whatever, where the beginning of this year, people are writing the eulogy for him. Just retire before Christmas. Just get it over with. Just end your career. We're ranking him 80 out of top 100. For him to shove it up everyone's ass and to be as dominant as he was offensively and like still a pretty legitimate presence defensively, that is a rare feat. That is very fortunate. That is something we should be so eternally grateful for, that we can watch Joel Embiid play extremely high level basketball in his age 31 season when everyone thought his career was cooked. And you're not cherishing that. Like he has to beg. Hopefully, we don't just duck the tax this year. We've been known to duck the tax every year. Hopefully, this time we can actually give ourselves a chance, because I really like the group of guys we have in here. And what do? They just duck the tax by trading away someone that everyone's going on like a media tour, like he just died, Jared McCain. Kyle Lowry just said, like, it's a guy that you just always love being around. You love having a locker room. And I really think he's got a bright. Everyone loves this kid. You trade him away. To me, John, I am so serious when I say this. They want Joel Embiid to request a trade so badly. There is nothing they would want more than for them to fall into the play-in, lose the play-in so they get a lottery pick, and Embiid goes up and says, "Listen, I want to give myself a chance to win a championship. I don't see that happening here. I want you to trade me." They would do anything to make that possible so they could get out from his contract. And then at that point, they'd be able to trade Paul George without feeling too bad about it. And they can just have all this freed up money and run their little Maxi Edgecombe team that isn't going to be good enough at all to do anything. And that's just such a slap in the face. That's a slap in the face to Joel. It's a slap in the face to the fans. It's a slap in the face to all the people that care about this team and the well being of it. And it's disgusting. It truly, truly is. The thought of this team going on some potential miracle run and winning a championship, and the first guy to touch the trophy, to put his grimy little disgusting hands on the Larry O'Brien trophy being Josh Harris, makes me sick. It makes me physically ill, the thought of peak finally happening with this basketball team, and that devilish rat is the one that puts his hand on the trophy first. Disgusting. Absolutely gross. But regardless of all that, I don't think Embiid's going to request the trade. His two idols being like Kobe and Dirk as like the two players known for their loyalty. And I really think he's forcing this Dirk arc in his mind, which Dirk didn't win a championship till he was 32. Joel Embiid next year happens to be 32 years old. And he said in a recent article that he's really happy where he's at right now. He's going to continue to progress and hopefully get better. And he said, but next year is where I really feel as though I'm going to be back to myself from a few years ago. So I think he's not like taking it easy or whatever, but he's
No,
continuing the process,
I
staying
think he's gotten to the
healthy,
point now for the
whatever.
first time. I think this is the real major. I think this is I think that recent knee surgery has made him really think about how he trains, how he eats. I think,
I mean,
especially now that
we
he's
saw it early in the season. It was like, he's working, he's ramping himself back up, and then you
well, he
see him
just looks like
now.
he's in such better shape, and it's great. But Michael, I do uh, my take on, like you said, with Embiid, like requesting a trade because then they finally have an excuse to kind of make him the bad guy to absolve themselves of
They're
blame.
too scared to trade him away if they wanted to. You know
I
what I
would,
mean?
I don't think they. I think realistically, if you look at the Sixers right now, when you were ranting for the last 15 minutes, I was just pulling up financial numbers of the Sixers. Michael, do you know the Sixers are valued at $5.45 billion? That's despite not owning an arena they play in.
Hmm.
They have their practice facility, which is it's a practice facility is essentially a glorified warehouse, essentially,
Hmm.
right? It's
Yeah.
not like they have concerts there or parking where it creates jobs for the city,
Hmm.
If they were to trade Embiid, that would be like the initial signal that Harris would either want to sell the Sixers and cash out because him and David Blitzer and Michael Rubin, bought the Sixers for less than $300 million back in
Hmm.
2011. Obviously, that's a massive windfall. And why they want to sell the Sixers? Well, they want to build this multi-billion-dollar stadium, and if they can't get enough public funding, well, they need to get the money from somewhere. And ducking the luxury tax on the Sixers isn't going to generate enough cash to go build a stadium in
Yeah.
wherever, Washington D.C., Maryland, Virginia, wherever they want to build the Commanders want to build their stadium. I say that because Josh Harris owns the Washington Commanders. To me, the thing with, like, if you look at you brought up a lot of points about the Jared McCain trade. Um, Basically, Daryl Morey lied. I'm sure he lied. You know, he's very adept at lying. He just wants to, and not taking any accountability. That's his other uh, character flaw. I guess we'll call it. Um, I do feel like VJ is like. Don't get mad when I say this. I'll explain why. He's like he's like the new Tobias for Daryl. And in other words, like, I'm never going to trade him because I'm just obsessed with what he does. And
I do
but
think he got like an itch for the lottery after drafting Edgecombe. I think that brought him a lot of excitement.
of course, yeah, I'm sure if you're a GM, you'd love to, draft really talented players very early, but often means that your job is in peril because unless your name is Sam Preston, you have this amazing plan put in place to build a championship level team, which Daryl Morey probably doesn't have. Yeah, I'm sure it's great, but I also think though too, the knock on Nick Nurse when the Sixers hired him, Michael, you know as well as I, what was the knock on him? He doesn't want to develop young players unless they're really talented and he has to play them.
It's yeah, like I don't know. I just don't think they viewed McCain's ceiling very high, and it's ultimately what did them in. I mean, they were able to get 4 pick listen, if in your mind, you do not believe too highly in Jared McCain, you don't think that high of him, you think more like in the Landry Shamet tier of NBA player versus like, you know, I don't know, just someone better regardless. Then yeah, trading him for 4 picks, it probably does feel like a steal to you. But when around the league sources are like, "Wow, people really think this is a steal for the Thunder." Um,
Yeah, that's the
and
other
when you
part. That's the other part too I want to talk about is if it wasn't the Thunder that traded for him, if this was like the Orlando Magic or the
Mhm.
Utah Jazz or the
Just not the
Memphis
defending champions, yeah.
Memphis Grizzlies, then it's like, okay, that's one thing. Michael, the Thunder are essentially like the Eagles of the NBA when it comes to making all these moves, and like 90% of the time they work out or they rip off
Mhm.
another team. And this is the second time Daryl Morey's had to make a trade with Sam Presti to accomplish something to monetarily benefit the Sixers, but hurt them in the long run.
Yeah,
Like,
like, the
like it's
way
not it like, dude, it is not out of the realm of possibility where they may get rid of Paul George by attaching the Clipper pick in like a massive salary dump.
it's hard. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, he said his 4 untouchables as close as there are Maxey, Edgecombe, Embiid, and George. What I think was we talk about the Thunder making that trade, like, you weren't getting 4 picks for McCain from anyone else. It's one of those weird things where it's like getting 4 picks for McCain at the value he was at, sure, that seems good, but at the same time, I don't think anyone else was doing that except the Thunder who are like, "Listen, our best player in the league, point guard, is gonna win the MVP this year, is out for a month with an abdominal strain. We need some backcourt help and some scoring help to help subsidize that. So we're gonna call up the Sixers, disgruntled, whatever, with McCain, whatever they feel about him." And we've talked about it all the time. Sam Presti has acquired like 1,000 draft picks for the Thunder. They're trading for sixth graders back in the day, and like this is their first time they're actually using one of their first round picks that they've acquired to get a player. And they are one of the teams that can afford trading for first round picks for like border, not a flyer, but like as close as you can to it. Um, and
Yeah,
at
it's
the
like
same time,
exactly. Yeah, dude.
inflating the trade market where you're the top contender and you just traded 4 first round picks for a guy that was barely playing like 10 minutes a game. And now like that causes Ao Dosunmu, or I can't think of his name right now or how to pronounce it. For he gets for 4 seconds, and it's like, geez, that doesn't feel like that was worth it. And now they inflated the trade market, which like from everyone's perspective, but especially a Sixers perspective, you just traded a guy away to make your team worse, and now you also made it impossible to acquire anyone else. Because if McCain's going for 4 draft picks, what the hell do you think you're going to get for a guy that's been playing like 20 minutes a game, or 25 minutes a game somewhere? Like if they wanted to acquire Bobby Portis, if McCain cost 4 draft picks, what the hell do you think a guy like Bobby Portis was going to cost now? A guy that's been starting all year and is having a
Yeah,
career shooting year.
all the other contenders were very scared to make any kind
They
of.
were very no big contender made any serious moves. The Celtics, they kinda got under the tax by dumping some salary, and they acquired Vucevic along the way. Um, but other teams, other big contenders, they didn't really do much. No one really did a ton at the deadline except for the Thunder. And yeah, I think that McCain trade kinda scared everybody
You
off,
didn't see the Spurs make a big trade.
no one made a big trade. I mean, the Pistons didn't I don't think the Pistons made any big trades, or the Knicks made a couple moves that I thought were pretty decent, but yeah, regardless, not a fan of the trade deadline. I think you shot yourself in the foot. Daryl Morey saying we're not even sure if we're going to use one of the draft picks, the first round pick they got from the Rockets, from the Thunder via the Rockets. And it's just annoying. It really, really is just annoying. It feels like
It
you gave
is,
up on a
yeah,
kid.
and well, this is a very interesting show today because we're gonna complain about two teams that don't do anything, and then another team that did a lot of things. Well, and then everyone's upset about it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move. Let's move over to the Flyers. So, well, Michael, when we did our show on Monday, it was well, it was interesting because we've the Flyers had their disaster carnival like media day,
Hmm.
and then on Tuesday, it came out that Danny Briere. I'm very confident he just lied through his teeth to the press to, but in a different way than what Daryl Morey lies. As in, Danny Briere preached the Flyers are not dysfunctional, which they kind of feel like they are because they admitted it 2 days prior. And that, Tocchet and Michkov have a great relationship, yada, yada, yada. Michkov plays 16 minutes
And they win.
and they win. And then Denver Barkey played like 13 minutes. I forget, Michael, who do we beat on Tuesday? Who the Flyers beat on Tuesday? Oh, it was
Uh, the King? No. Was it the Kings? The Capitals. The
the
Capitals.
Capitals. And
Capitals. Yeah.
and like I saw like NHL betting Twitter was like hammer the Capitals after like,
The
you know,
disaster.
the
Yeah.
disaster, which, it sounds like to me that I think Briere and I think to an extent, I think maybe Briere maybe pulled Tocchet aside and just tore him a new one, basically saying, you need to stop with all your little comments and then go into your boy Paul Beeston, who Michael, by the way, Paul Beeston thinks you're a quote effing moron
Yeah.
because you
Yeah, he
don't
does.
you don't bow to the feet of Rick Tocchet, who like
Yeah.
like
Yeah. No,
I've
it's
never seen such glazing from a former player podcaster to like a coach just because they're like friends. This would literally be like if Zach Ronaldo had a podcast and he's like, Peter Laviolette's, an amazing coach. He's one of the, I can't. And by the way, Peter Laviolette is a much better coach than Rick Tocchet is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
FYI.
they I don't know. They're at the Olympic break. We'll see what they do at the trade deadline. I sent you this text that was forwarded through Nick, friend of the show. Um, where he was right. Like you have an issue where you have three players that are, skilled enough, playing at a high enough level in Travis Konechny, Matvey Michkov, and even Owen Tippett. As much as I rag on Owen Tippett, he's having a very nice season. And those are three guys that are all playing at a top six caliber, like top six level. They should be on the first two lines, but they all are better on the right wing. And your option being playing the one with the most upside on his left wing instead of the right, and also like third line minutes, it just feels crazy to me. It really, really does. So the point there is that like you have a log jam, and I think it would better suit you to free it up a little bit. So whether that does mean trading Tippett, whether that means trading Konechny, and I really feel like Konechny should be the first one to go. Like
He should be. I agree.
you can get a good
I'm
chunk
sorry.
back for
I
him.
had another point I wanted to make, and
Yeah,
then
go
we'll
ahead,
go in.
please.
Sorry. So ripping into the coach is so then Thursday, Michael, Flyers played the Senators.
Hmm.
They had 5 shots through like the first 2 periods. And if you pull up the box score, Michkov plays 13 minutes.
Hmm.
Denver Barkey plays 9 minutes. It's like you just got torn a new one from your bosses for not doing what you're told, and then you go back and you insist on playing like Christian Dvorak 22 minutes a game. It's disgusting.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely disgusting.
I really think a serious organization would have fired Tocchet like as soon as the carnival stuff came up, because it's like, what are you even doing? What are you actually even doing? Going to the Flyers carnival and getting super defensive, super ego driven about Michkov, like when you're answering questions that were asked very respectfully, by the way. All he asked was what more does he need to do to get some of the minutes that all like a lot of fans think he should be getting. You could have given any answer. You could have said, "Listen, that injury really hindered his offseason, and it's just we're at a point where we're really just trying to ease him into it. I know it's frustrating for all the fans, and I know that's tough, but it's just what we think is best for him right now, so we don't have to, you know, we don't wanna expose him. We're trying to protect him, whatever." And as annoying as that answer would have been, it would have been so much more digestible and acceptable to give that, as opposed to giving the whole, "Oh, well, what do you think he should be playing? Why do you think he should just be getting these minutes for fun? Like, what do you?" And it's just ridiculous, And if you had a competent head coach and a competent GM, your like next year team on day one could not be so bad of like Porter Martone, Trevor Zegras, and Matvey Michkov as your first line, and just play those guys like 20 plus minutes a night and just see what the fuck happens. Just see it. Just see it through. See these high level talent guys and just watch them on a nightly basis, because at least it's enjoyable to put your eyes on the TV screen as opposed to watching Christian Dvorak get 20 minutes a game. Your second line, you could have Barkey on the left wing, Tippett on the right wing, and go get the center. Go get the center you've been hammering about. Make it a trade, make it a free agent acquisition, whatever it may be. Your third line, you have to have Dvorak in there because you kept him, and then like Forster and Bump maybe. If you don't trade at Bobby Brink, and then your fourth line, you still got Grabenkin, you still got Cates, and obviously you still got Couturier, and it's like, what names didn't I say? I didn't say Bobby Brink. I didn't say Travis Konechny. Okay, you trade those guys. You make it work. Travis Konechny should be very, very, very tradable at this year's deadline. And I know he has a no movement clause, but I really do think you can convince it to him where you're like, listen, man, the Stanley Cup window is just not. It's not in your future of your best prime years here. So we want to give you a chance where you could still be a highly productive player and compete for a cup right now. What do you say? And I really think he would make the turn and swallow that bullet and go for it. And I think some fans would be upset, but ultimately I think everyone would accept that it's the right move to do. It makes your team significantly worse right now, puts you in a better position to acquire at the draft one of these top flight prospects. And it just sets you up. It opens up a space for guys that you kind of are hoping get a little bit better. Like, talk about it all the time. Owen Tippett, as much as of a boob he is in terms of hockey IQ at times, and how much he just rips things off the glass and the boards, we've talked about it. If he was with a center that was like elite, if he was playing alongside a guy like Crosby, playing alongside a guy like, McDavid, playing alongside one of these great all-time centers or whatever, he could legitimately put up like 40 plus goals because he would just be given opportunities, golden opportunities constantly, constantly, constantly. And he does have a good enough shot that when he does hit the net, he can really pick a spot. But here, that's just so limited at this point because you don't have good centers on your team. You know what I mean? So, eh,
Or geez,
but
I don't know, Michael. At the deadline, if you're going to trade Travis Konechny or Tippett or both, right? Get back a young
young
This is
center, yeah.
a young center who might not
Mhm.
be like. I'm not saying like, oh, let's get Mason McTavish because that's not going to happen.
No, but, like, you get someone, like, that's on their way out, you know what I mean? Get someone that's, like, a disgruntled, like, you got Zegras for it's, like, that sort of move, Martin Necas was, like, bitching to get out of Carolina because they wouldn't put him at center, and then he sends him to Colorado, and it's like, that's the sort of move that you go and make. You trade your players for a guy that's pretty good still, but is disgruntled and wants to get out of there, and you give them a shot at playing center and giving them big minutes, and you see what happens. I mean, you're doing it with Zegras. You're now finally starting to see if he can play center after I don't know why it took so long, but here we are.
My concern after like let's say the Flyers unload. I'm just gonna be realistic. Let's say Tippett because with the salary cap going up, his contract would look bad last year. Now it doesn't look as bad,
As bad, yeah.
which makes him tradable, and he's got years on his contract. So a team that's going to acquire him it's almost like in baseball acquiring a guy on like a team favorable contract, and it's like, oh, we could throw him on our third line, in our penalty kill, and because we have other great centers on our team, you know,
Mhm.
oh, he's going to play better.
Yeah,
He's playing with like Devo, for example. I
yeah,
hate to say it, Michael. It's just a fact. He's gonna play. You play with better players, you put up more points. Scott Hartnell had a 40-goal season the one year he played with a 41-year-old Yaromir Jagr.
yeah.
It's just a fact. So, but I'm not confident if they do that, Michael. If they trade like Tippett, that they're going to give Mitchkov more minutes, Barkey more minutes. You know, some of the younger guys like Noah Cates is playing like 20 minutes a game. He looks completely exhausted. Like he probably hasn't played 20 minutes a game since he was like in juniors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I don't like, dude.
It just sucks, man. It just sucks, truly. Like,
Like it just boggles my mind though. So like the reason last year that Tortorella quit was because Briere was probably telling him to play the young players, and you know how Tortorella is. If you ask him to take out the trash on his way out, he probably throws a poop fit over it, right?
mhm.
Doesn't like being told what to do, has an attitude. And then
Yeah.
David Shaw becomes the coach, and David Shaw plays Mitchkov 20
Bradshaw.
minutes. Sorry, Brian
Brad. Brad.
Bradshaw. Sorry,
Is
Bradshaw.
it? Yeah. Yeah, Bradshaw.
Brad.
What's so like and then now you have them having to beg Tocchet to play minutes, and it's like, isn't it crazy that Tocchet is, like, a lot worse than Tortorella was? Is it insane? Because while like, Tortorella was definitely a lot more upfront with his asshole qualities as, like, a coach, as a person,
At
whatever,
least you
than
know he's
Tocchet
an
was.
a-hole up front.
But he made it very clear what was happening at all times. He wasn't saying, like, you know, he wasn't saying one thing and then doing another on
Yeah, he
game
was
nights.
brutally honest.
Yes, and it's like you can appreciate that a little bit more than what Tockett's doing, where he's like, "Yeah, we really gotta find a way to get Emil Andre in the lineup here," and then he's a scratch for the next 2 games, and it's like, You're the coach, man. You're the asshole that makes that decision. What are you doing right now? He's done it with Grebenkin all season. He did it with Barkey. He's doing it with everybody. And it's the fact of the matter, it almost feels like Tortorella is somehow a better hockey mind than Tocchet is,
Well,
which is crazy to me. You
well,
know
it's
what I mean?
because when you look at Tocchet, like, dude, so like, with you look at kind of like you look at the offense and how anemic it is. Like I just said, 15 shots against the Senators. You're not playing your guys that can make a difference on offense. Like you're basically what he basically is doing is he's trying to almost get them to overtime so they get the point, and then who cares if we lose? Like, what's the difference between us drawing, 2 games in a row versus winning one game and then losing the other? It's an NHL wide problem, by the way. It's not just the
I mean, the Fly
Flyers
the
that
Flyers have
engage in
over
this.
I mean, they have 11, like, overtime shootout losses, which is, uh, like, 4th in the NHL behind Pittsburgh, Vegas, and the Kings, it appears, and it's like, all of it's just frustrating. They really honest to God, they really should've just kept Bradshaw. There was no like, Bradshaw was the perfect bridge coach, basically, where it's like, there's a guy that the players are playing hard for. We remember it all the time. Tortorella steps down, quits, whatever happens, and Michkov goes on like that crazy heater at the end of the season. Remember, he went on the great heater, and it was like, "Oh my God, Matt Fay's here. He got away from Torts. Oh my God, oh my God." And the Flyers, well, as bad as they've been, what has been their strength as a team over the last, like, 3 years or so? The penalty kill. Their penalty kill was really good. It was at the top of the league. They called it the power kill for a little bit because they were scoring so many shorthanded goals on top of not giving up a lot of goals, and now that went in the gutters, and, like, that was Brad Shaw right there. Brad Shaw, the defensive-minded guy, really did a lot to help the defense of the players and really did a lot for the penalty kill. And now the penalty kill's in the gutters and stinks, and it's like, Shaw could have been the perfect guy that the players like playing for, that was almost like your Brett Brown, you know what I mean? Almost like your coach that is gonna carry you through the crap, and maybe when it's time and the moment starts getting a little bit bigger, and if he doesn't have it, now we can pivot off and go make a serious coaching hire that can push your team to a new level, but instead you, like, immediately pivoted off Tortorella and Shaw into, like, I don't know, like a cousin of Tortorella, where you still suck, you still are a douche, but you're not as upfront about it, and you're arguably dumber. And it's like, you're constantly shooting yourself in the foot. Truly, we talk about the new era of orange, and it keeps feeling like the same thing. Former Flyer, former Flyer, former Flyer, and not to like totally harp on that point, but when they're not getting any better, like it just it's what you focus on. And it's frustrating, man. We'll see how the Olympic break goes. Hopefully Michkov comes back like firing on all cylinders. We all know that, after the Four Nations break last year, that's when Michkov really hit his stride and it was like, oh my God. And hopefully, the few weeks off he's gonna do a lot of good for him. That's what we're focusing on the most with this team. What's crazy.
FYI, Rick Tocchet's contract signed a 5-year contract that he earns $5.25 million annually.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's crazy that the Phillies are gonna play a baseball game before the Flyers play their next game. Isn't that a silly little perspective with the Olympic break? And the Phillies are right around the corner. But we're not here to talk about the Phillies, and we're done talking about the winter teams. Let's get into, before we talk Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles, the football team. I am wearing a shirt, St. Joe's hat today. Big game against George Mason. Hawks are on a roll.
Big game for your Hawks, bro.
Yeah, big game. So the Eagles have been in the news, and definitely not for good things. Wouldn't you agree? Not been the best reasons to be talked about recently. Jeff Stoutland retires, steps down, leaves the organization, still up for debate, but is not going to be seemingly not going to be a part of the Eagles organization from here on out. And while that was a gut punch in and of itself, finding out the actual reasoning behind it was a lot worse than it originally sounded. So over the last few years, Jeff Stoutland's job title was offensive line coach and run game coordinator. And the Eagles fantastic uh have had a fantastic run game from say 2021. Like he became the run game coordinator in 2018. So he's done it for quite some time at this point. And 2018, the running backs were obviously terrible. 2019, they drafted Miles Sanders. There was improvements there, but it still wasn't all that great. 2020, the run game was pretty much the only good part of the offense. And then from 2021 to 2024, the Eagles' running game was very, very good. Obviously, offensive line was very good. Running back was great. The quarterback was a great runner, etc. All these sort of things that factor into that. But at some point last year, the Eagles realized that the run game was sucking, which, doesn't take much to figure that one out. And Nick Sirianni felt the need to go step in and do something. And like in a vacuum, not a bad thing. The head coach sees a problem. He feels he needs to go step in and address it. Cool. That's your job. That's what you're there to do. The issue is the way he went about doing it. He goes to his buddy Kevin Patullo, who's getting railed on by the fans and the media and everybody for the bad offense and whatever, and goes to him and is like, "Listen, I'm fixing this. I'm stepping, we're going to do this, this, and this." And essentially just doesn't include or brief Jeff Stoutland enough with these decisions. And I think part of being a culture head coach and a CEO head coach that he describes himself as, you need to be able to manage that with your coaching staff without really pissing anyone off. Like, you should go to KP and be like, "Listen, we got to make some changes with the run game. Let's go get Jeff. Get Jeff Stoutland in here, and we're going to talk it out. And we're going to be like, listen, we think we should do this, this, and add this to the run game. We think it could help out. The offensive line's not been as good. They're not as healthy. We got to do some things to help them out. This is what we should be doing." And like, just figure it out. Just talk it through like grown adults instead of whatever the hell happened to the point where Jeff Stoutland felt his toes were getting stepped on so much and was like borderline disrespected enough, I guess, to where he was like, "You know what? I'm done. You got it. I'm just going to coach the O line. You can coordinate the run game. Remove that off my job title because it is not what I'm doing at this point anymore." And it was so bad that they couldn't rekindle it. Shio Kapadia just talked about it and said that, from upstairs, as in Jeffrey Lurie, really wanted, obviously, Stoutland to stick around. Guy's been for the franchise 13 years. Guy's got 2 Super Bowls and wanted him to stick around with the new coaching staff. And Sirianni couldn't mend that relationship, and that's on the head coach there. That is on the head coach
I,
to
I wonder
mend
who the
that.
source. I'm guessing the source of that is going to be. I'm guessing it's Statland telling the media. Like, I guess, like, how would someone know all that if
Yeah, I'm sure
because you
Stoutland,
if KP's like the supposed leak, why would he out
well,
himself
Nick, but
as an a hole?
no, I think I'm sure Stoutland talked. It doesn't, regardless on where it's coming from. It's just, it's very believable that Sirianni couldn't mend that relationship, and that's another hit against him in terms
Well,
of like,
I also wonder too. Um,
I mean, it was so ugly to the point where Jeff Stoutland, it wasn't even officially stated between the two that they were going to be moving on. He was going to be moving on from them, and he goes ahead and posts on social media that he's out, like stout out. I'm calling, not calling a bluff, but I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this anymore, to show that he was serious. And now the Eagles need to replace an offensive line coach. Obviously, they've already replaced the run game coordinator with the former Packers offensive line coach, who's now going to be the run game coordinator and tight ends coach. So, you know, listen, it's expected. When you hire a new offensive coordinator that's going to be bringing in supposedly a brand new offense, you are going to have a lot of offensive coaching staff changes. That's very normal. That shouldn't be something that comes to a surprise. But for what Jeff Stoutland means to all the guys in the locker room and this organization, he's one of those guys that should stick around through regime changes. You make it work for him because he is so important to it.
Right. But
And
the
you
thing,
can't you
yeah.
fuck that up, you know?
Well, so it's really rare for a positional coach to spend almost 15 years, 14, 15 years going through multiple regime changes, and he's always part of the staff. And
Mhm.
Michael, I guess I'm going to try to go a little bit the other way here. I'm not going to defend Nick Sirianni for having bad people skills and not, and listen, maybe he did try to bring in Stoutland and Stoutland threw a fit, you know? Maybe Stoutland has a bit of an ego, where he's like, I'm the best O-line coach in the NFL. I'm one of the best all time, Stoutland University.
I
Maybe
mean, I think he should have somewhat of an ego. He's been here
right.
for a
Well,
long,
I mean,
long time.
I'm just saying. And then it's like, maybe from a OC slash even maybe a head coach perspective, a lot of these head coaches, Michael, want to bring in their own guys. And I think maybe with the OC search, as crazy as it sounds, the fact that you can't, a lot of these guys who want to advance in the NFL, they want to bring in their own guys. If they're told by Howie, you got to have this guy as your coach, this guy. That's been the knock. That's the knock on Howie. The last, like, from hiring Doug and hiring Nick was Howie has too much control with like who's going to be whose coaches and whoever. I'm just saying, like, that we
Yeah,
all
but
bitch.
when
We
it's
all
so,
bitch
like,
about not getting innovative guys, right? We all bitched and complain about it, and now they want to bring in a guy that wants to implement the McVay offense. Guess what? Jeff Stoutland's run game, like his run scheme, doesn't align
yeah, but
with.
it's up to the head coach to manage that relationship to the point where it's like, "Listen, we're gonna be doing something, like, totally brand new with the offense. We'd love to keep you here as an offensive line coach, but, I can't promise the run game like, I don't think you're not gonna be a run." But it's see, where I disagree with you here is that this isn't a new issue. This didn't just come up in the off season where it's like, "Oh, everything went to shit." Like, no,
Oh,
this
oh
started
no,
last year.
I agree. Barring the Eagles winning the Super Bowl this next season, I think Nick Sirianni's time with the Eagles is short.
But
And the
it's like they messed up the Statler relationship last year. Like, that's where the bridge got burnt, and, like, they were trying to save it, but it was already too far gone from the previous season with Petula, with the same sort of scheme. And, like, it's hard to deny because the we can all admit that the running game got better. It probably got better when Sirianni and Petullo took more control of it over Stoutland, because if Stoutland was still treating the offensive line like they were the same old guys when they were really banged up and couldn't do it, yeah, it made a huge difference. So they did see improvements to the run game. The problem is that the way you just carry about your business, you need to include these people in your conversations. That's a
well, we
emotional
don't. Well, Michael,
intelligence,
there's still a lot we don't know. I'm not defending Sirianni, but like,
McLean laid out a pretty solid, foundation to it all. I think we have a decent understanding of how it all went down, and it seems like they went and made changes without fully consulting him, and he was like, "All right, I'm not gonna do it anymore." I That's bad. That's bad from the CEO head coach that's supposed to be known for his culture. Like, this, and again, not the first time that we've had internal issues with the culture and the team, not the first time we've had disgruntled players, not the first time we've had coaches like stepping over their bounds and that throwing relationships off. Like, it's just not the first time with this under this head coach. And like you said, his time is short. That was also part of what Jeff McLean said, that his seat is hotter now than it was in 2023. It's hotter now than it was, in the early part of 2024. And that's all before the Super Bowl. So it's it's pretty glaring at this point, where the messaging from the team feels like you're going to get on board with the new offensive coaching staff, players and coaches alike, and if you're not totally for it, then we're gonna be looking in another direction.
have you ever seen an offensive coordinator come in, going to run their offense, pick all of their assistants that he wants to have, that's never had play calling experience before, and the head coach is on a hot seat.
Yeah, the Eagles are in a very unique situation, where if they can't, they couldn't convince their big fish that they wanted to catch for their offensive coordinator to come in, and they get a guy that, listen, is pretty well respected in the league in terms of future coaches. Clint Kubiak raved about him, probably would have made him his offensive coordinator once he takes the Raiders job officially. Like, is clearly desired and is on seemingly the track to become a head coach. Sean Mannion, that is. So I don't think it was a bad hire or anything. But yeah, there is a big question mark. We've seen him call plays in the East-West Bowl. We haven't seen him do it at a high level yet, and that's, like, could be and probably going to be somewhat of a learning curve, and, we'll just have to see how it plays out, but that wasn't the only big news that came out with the Eagles. There was also we've known now for a few years that Lane Johnson, end of his career, retirement is coming, um, but it's interesting when we hear that Jeff McClain believes that he thinks there's a better chance that Lane Johnson is back, which all indications are pointing that Lane Johnson will be back. A better chance that Lane Johnson's back than Landon Dickerson. Landon Dickerson, 27 years old, has had an extreme amount of injuries in his life, both in college and in the NFL. And you know, he said at the end of the season last year, he's not sure if he's ever going to get back to what he once was. And, anyone with two eyes could have seen he was moving horribly all season. That is absolutely a mistake of the Eagles organization by letting him play. He absolutely should have been shut down probably since, he got the little surgery or whatever in August. He shouldn't have played until like Halloween, to be completely honest with you. And he played all season and he played almost every game and he looked like shit doing it. Like, fact of the matter, he looked like hot garbage. And there's a good chance he might retire. And it's hard to blame him. He's only 27, but he's had all these health issues and injuries. It wouldn't be that crazy for him to do it. And that would really suck. That would really, really suck. But if he's not even going to be able to get back to his old form, it might be better off for him to retire than to play at the level he played at last year because he truly was
Well, I can
terrible
think of
and
20
hindered a
plus
lot of your
million
offense.
reasons why he may want to play one more season and then maybe
Listen,
retire.
I understand that, but like if his body isn't going to hold up, like,
Well,
and he's
I think it's easy after basically not having an off-season training regimen because he waited so late to get knee surgery. Like he put it off. And like I don't know, we kind of underrate when guys put off surgeries and how it affects them. Like I remember during the last dance when Michael Jordan, we was being a hypocrite about this, by the way, when he was complaining about Scottie Pippen putting off a foot surgery
or back
until
surgery, I thought.
or back surgery or something until the beginning of the season because he was pissed over his contract with Jerry Krause, their GM. But like my point is like he waited till so long and it kind of messed up the season. Why not do it earlier, like right after the Super Bowl? Like that. And listen, I'm not sure, and that's not me. Like I wonder why. Like maybe it wasn't bad enough where he needed
Yeah, and it
surgery.
probably that's my guess. It got worse when he started
Maybe he
preparing
was
for next
worried
season.
if he worried if he got another surgery, maybe with the medicals, if he got another surgery, they told him like you really need this surgery. You should just wait if it gets worse, then just get an arthroscopic
Mhm.
surgery. And listen to when he got the surgery and came back, he did not look like he couldn't train, so he wasn't in shape. That's how you saw how like, and he was struggling. So like I mean, I hate to say it, Michael, but like you mentioned, like he's more likely to retire. He's only 27 years old, and I don't know
I mean,
if
we're seeing players retire younger and younger these days, really taking care of their health. And
well, like guys, especially guys with like head is like concussion issues. I mean, Luke Kuechly just got elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, he's got to be one of the youngest guys to ever get elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he retired, you know, essentially midway through his career, right?
Yeah, he retired at age, he's currently 34. He retired at age 28, you know? So, he definitely
Yeah,
retired at a very high level. So, like, it would be something like that, you know? Like, I mean, Landon Dickerson is a very, as an offensive lineman, a solidly
he's
decorated
been one of the
career.
best guards in pro football for the last 4 years,
Yeah, and it just
and,
blows,
and that's
man.
the thing. Everyone knows about the injury history. And listen, I'm sure the way the season ended, as a player, you're not feeling probably like the most positive. You
Mhm.
know, you're gonna be, especially with the Stoutland news. If you're in that room with Stout, like you're probably not happy that he's leaving. But it's also part of the NFL. Like a Mekhi Becton who loves Stout left and went to the Chargers, right? So it's not like you
I mean, he
know.
went to go get paid, like, now it's like I don't know, like, Jordan Mailata said he's been crying for days, and it's like,
Do you,
you you
I
you
just
fucked this
remember.
up.
I
They
just
messed this up
remember. I
so
just
big time,
remember
dude.
during the AJ Brown, like at the peak of AJ Brown drama, when Jason Kelsey mentioned Lane, where him and Lane didn't talk for almost a full off season, because Lane, when I think when Chip Kelly got fired, Lane was just talking about, like, he was giving his opinions on things, and then Kelsey checked him, was like, "You've only played for one guy,
Yeah.
dude. Like, what are you like? Come on, like this is just part. Like, and listen, like, yeah, it's it's not a good look." And Lane Johnson did come out and say, I want to play for a new guy, and I kind of want to transition this.
Well, I don't think he said, like, "I want to play for a new coach." He was like, "I'm open to playing for anybody," He gave a professional answer. I don't think he gave an answer that was like, "I'm done with the old stuff. I'm ready to do something new." You know what I mean? Like,
Can we talk about something positive?
I'm sure, I guess, if you can find it.
AJ Brown is excited by the new changes.
Yeah, that was, I guess, overall encouraging. I
You,
see
Michael, you
pessimists
damn
saying
well know he could have said, "This is stupid. I
no,
want
I
this.
know, but I
I want
see
to get
I
the hell
see
out of here."
I see the pessimists saying, like, is he just, you know, saying good stuff, agent speak to make it a little more
No, I'm
whatever.
1,000% confident that Sean Mannion, probably when he was interviewed by the Eagles twice, because he's going to be the play caller, install his offense, he probably brought a thick ass binder and said, "Hey, look at all these plays I have designed for all these different routes. I'm going to have Smitty run and AJ Brown run." And I'm sure, like Howie Roseman, I think Jeffrey Lurie probably ate it up, because you don't think Jeffrey Lurie's son, Julian Lurie, part of the team, takes those ADOT charts and shows them in front of his dad, like, "Look at this. Look at all these
Yeah,
hitch routes we're running. This needs to stop."
yeah, yeah. Listen, I am encouraged by it for sure. Calling Philadelphia home and saying, change can be a good thing. He gave his shout out to Patullo. He's always been he, he's never really trashed a coach like publicly that bad. Like he's always been very careful about how he talks about coaches and stuff. Um, so he's, doing his thing. So that's yeah, I guess it's good news. Hopefully, I really hope they don't trade him. I really, really hope they don't. I don't think they will. But if I think about it too hard, I think I can talk myself into it, and it gets me upset. So I really, really hope. Listen, he's got to be better. Fact of the matter, he had a down season by every thing that you could by the eye test, by stats, by whatever. He wasn't creating as much separation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like he needs to, maybe get some of the speed back, get some of the explosiveness back a little bit, be a little more aggressive at the catch point again, and just be that guy that we all know he is. He's not old or washed or anything, but between like effort level and whatever, it seems like there was just a down year. And why I really want him to stay is because he was right. He was right every time he was complaining. Um, and I think that there is absolutely a rekindling that can be done, and he's a huge part of the offense. You will be worse trading him away, like no doubt about it.
No, I'm
So
100% confident. I'm going
100,
to
huh?
assume Mannion has probably called or texted like Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith,
I'd hope so, man.
AJ Brown.
I hope
I'm
so.
sure he probably called AJ Brown and he's like, "Listen, man, I know you want to dominate. Well, good news, buddy. Good news, good news, buddy. Uh, if we're gonna win games next year, like we need to find you like at least 12 targets a game,
Yeah, I mean that'd be cool. We'll see.
or like, hey,
Um,
you see these routes we had Romeo Dobbs run last year for Jordan Love?
Romeo Dobbs.
You're gonna be running them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, hopefully, man. We'll see. Obviously, things will heat up. The draft will get closer and whatever, whatever, whatever. But we got one more game on the season. We have the Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara. The Seattle Seahawks, technically the away team, doesn't really matter a ton, but the Seahawks, 4.5 point favorites over the New England Patriots. It's the highest spread since Super Bowl 52 when the Patriots are 4.5 point favorites over the Eagles. Um, this is an interesting one. It's something that, gun to my head after the conference championship games, I was Seahawks, 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 Seahawks pilled. And the public also Seahawks pilled. You're seeing over 70% of bettors on certain sites, over 65, everyone hammering the Seahawks. And it does feel hard to imagine Vegas losing this big on the Super Bowl. And as the week has progressed, the media week and whatever, I've definitely I've definitely moved a little bit to thinking that New England, like, there's no way they don't cover. Spreads of this size, the underdog covers a ton. Like spreads of like 4 or more points, um, cover all the time. And I'm really stuck in between because you look at New England and they've struggled a lot mightily in the playoffs. Drake May has not played well, but they've had 3 bad weather playoff games that I think have also led into that. And obviously, the weather in Santa Clara is projecting to be very nice tomorrow night. So all that being said, it's very plausible that New England will play better. But at the same time, how many Super Bowl teams have played bad football for like over a month entering the Super Bowl? Like, fact of the matter is, the Patriots' offense has been pretty terrible for a while now. Like, it hasn't. Looking at their schedule, um, they haven't played. They haven't played a good offensive performance since the regular season ended, but, like, they ended the season against the Jets, where Drake May played really well, and they ended the season against the Dolphins, where the offense played well again. So, like, they haven't played a good game against a meaningful opponent since December 21st, offensively, so it is it's definitely
Well,
gonna
can I?
be a switch
Well,
needing to flip for New
can I
England.
just bring something up though, Michael? About you mentioned how bad their offense has been. They played the 3 best defenses in the NFL in the playoffs, and they won all 3 games.
They did. That they did.
And when you look at Seattle, listen, I picked the Seahawks to beat the Rams, and everyone's like, "Oh, Darnold, 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 Darnold." Well, Rams don't have a good defense, Michael. I'm sorry, man. Their defense is just not good. You almost blow that game to the Panthers. You got lucky in the Bear game because Caleb just made some bad decisions and DJ Moore stopped running a route. And
Mhm,
then you go against the Seahawks and Sam Darnold almost has a perfect passer rating against you. I'm sorry. Your defense isn't good, right?
mhm.
That being said, of the 4 defenses the Patriots will be playing in the postseason, I think the Seahawks is the worst amongst the 4. If you factor in like The Seahawks offense and their ability to dominate time of possession really helps their defense out a lot. I'm not saying the defense is bad, Michael. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the Seahawks really don't have a guy on defense where you're going to game plan around him because he's going to cause problems. When you look at the Patriots' last two opponents that they've played, Broncos, Nick Bonito, in a year where a guy doesn't break an NFL record that stood for 23 plus years, probably could win the defensive player of the year. Nick Bonito was so good this year for Denver, right? And they
Yeah.
had last year's defensive player of the year on their team and Pat Surtain II, right?
Mm-hmm.
Texans. Michael, we talked about the Texans defense like they were the 2000 Ravens. Full stop. Like,
Here, while I do agree with all this, and the Chargers defense is great, Khalil Mack. What was going on? What was going on the other side of the ball? You know what I mean? Justin Herbert with an all-time stinker, CJ Stroud with like somehow an even worse all-time stinker, and then they went up against Jared Stidham, where yes, those defenses are tremendous, but all it would have taken was just some resemblance of a better quarterback play or better offensive play they were going against, and they could have lost any 3 of those games at this
oh
point.
yeah, but here's the other thing too. You look at Vrabel. Why take risks? That's the Patriot way because we know who. Listen, I don't like this guy at all. I don't think he's a good offense. I personally don't think he's a great offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. Why take risks on offense when you know the other team can't score? Has no shot of scoring. Why take risks on offense when CJ Stroud looks like a deer in the headlights look, not ready to play?
So I guess what it just comes down to is, do you think Sam Darnold is gonna be playing in that same mode that those other quarterbacks played?
I mean,
Coming off
Michael, the
of
fact that over 70% of these bets are on Seattle and Darnold turns back into a pumpkin, I guess, or sees ghosts.
it's just hard
It's
for me
kind
to
of
just
Like
throw
Michael.
that out there.
I can't, Michael. Can't you just? I mean, if Darnold throws 4 picks and the Patriots win like 17-10,
I mean, yeah, man, if he throws 4 picks, but, like, okay, so he throws 4 picks and they only win by a touchdown. Like, I'm not that encouraged by that because Jesus Christ, if it takes 4 interceptions to win by 7,
I mean,
what is
listen,
it
the
only if
Patriots
it's
win the
only
Super Bowl.
2?
This Patriots team, people are going to say they're probably one of the worst teams to ever win the Super Bowl. But at the same time, you technically won the Super Bowl, so who cares? Like people said,
Sure. But, I
oh,
mean,
that Eagles team in Super Bowl 52
Darnold
is one of the worst teams to ever win the Super Bowl.
I mean, I don't hear people saying that, but, I mean, Darnold lit up an all-time NFC Championship game, 25 of 36, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, was making incredible throw after incredible throw. Like, I just think the bar
I mean, is he Nick? Are you saying he's
I
Nick?
think listen, all it takes is a couple weeks, you know? You only gotta put it on for a couple weeks, and he's already got one of the games out of the way. Like, I look at Darnold and, like, it's not gonna be a shitty weather day. Like, they're not gonna be able to rely on the weather to make CJ Stroud, like, absolutely incompetent. They're not gonna be able to rely on the weather that already makes Jarrett Stidham, who's horrible, look even worse than he is, you know? They're not gonna be able to rely on Herbert, who has not played a good playoff game in his life, and, you know, they aren't missing their 2 starting offensive tackles entering that game and, you know, have their number 1 receiver as Lad McConkey and not Jackson Smith and Jigba, offensive player of the year, by the way. Like, it's just as much as sure it's true that this might be the worst defense that New England's facing, which I think is arguable. I do think Seattle's defense is still really good, although it's as we saw, it's beatable. You're able to beat it. I look at it as this is easily the best offense they're going to play by like a mile, like so far. It's the best offense they're going to be playing. It's the best running back they're going to be facing. It's the best receiver they're going to be facing. And it's the quarterback that's playing the best at the moment that they're going to be facing. And flipping it over to the defensive side of the ball, while yes, it is they are playing with. You look at how the Rams were able to succeed greatly against the Seahawks defense. Even in a tough loss, you saw they were able to move the ball. New England doesn't have Puka Nacua, man. New England doesn't have Devontae Adams. They got Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs and Matt Collins. And while New England's offense has been able to be awesome all season long, I look at the way Drake May has played, and it's been really, really bad. And he was super vulnerable in that one moment against Denver. And it was cool, Josh McDaniels calmed it down, whatever. But it was like Drake May was seeing ghosts, you could almost say. He was like, "It's just so hard, man. It's so hard right now." And it's like McDaniel's like, "I know, just gotta push through, lock in, whatever." And it's like, this isn't gonna be an easier situation. It was on the road, whatever, but,
I'm not
this
saying
is
it's going to be easy. I'm just saying, like,
I just don't know if New England's got enough to stand to the task at this juncture. It's hard for me to picture, um, all of a sudden they flip the switch and it's like they're lighting up the scoreboard or anything like that. Um, it's a tough one. And what a huge news is that Nick Emanwari, um, Seahawks, great young slot corner, rookie slot corner, is banged up. He sprained his ankle or whatever. He hurt himself
he's
this
been
week.
battling ankle injuries all season. He missed the
Yeah.
first couple games due to hurting his ankle. Now he's
It's
re-aggravated
like
it.
flared up again. Like this is we're shooting you up with whatever we need to shoot you
Well,
up with.
all
Give it
right.
to me for a game.
This is the Super Bowl. I think we can go more in depth of this game than we do for other games when we're picking the games. Obviously,
Sure, sure.
this is going to be the last pick of the
And
2025
when we
season.
make our picks, we're gonna give the spread pick, we're gonna give a score prediction as we always do, and then we're gonna give the Super Bowl MVP as also. So
Okay, so let's just go by like units against each other. The Seahawks offense versus the Patriots defense.
Patriots defense is good. Is like especially when Milton Williams is healthy and been in there, it has been really, really good. The two defensive tackles, Tonga and Milton Williams, wreck the game. They really do often. And the Seahawks offensive line is definitely not their strong suit. It's not a bad unit, but it's pretty middle of the road
Well,
above
like
average.
Grace Abel, he got votes for offensive rookie of the year, which he's been great, man. Grace Abel's a great
Mhm,
player. Anthony Bradford um
mhm,
is not very good.
right.
And when you saw the Super Bowl last year, well, it was a big reason the Eagles won, getting after the quarterback.
Mhm.
What's Sam Darnold's kind of like when Sam Darnold is quote unquote seeing ghosts? What does he do a lot? Holds on the ball too long,
You take
panics,
sacks.
takes bad sacks. You saw it this year too. Uh, even in like you've seen it this year when they played the Rams on Thursday Night Football, taking some pretty bad sacks midway through the game before they made their wild comeback. Um, yeah, Patriots pass rush gonna have to get after him. And look, Christian Gonzalez, way better than any corners the Rams have. Like, way better than any corners the Hospital Niners had, you know?
It'll be interesting because, you're gonna want him to follow him around as much as he can, but we know how much JSN can play out of the slot too and be dangerous in there, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe some more JSN in the slot to try to get him away from Gonzo or force New England to play Gonzalez in the slot when they don't want to. Um, but listen, yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
And listen, I crack up at guys I talk to at work. We talk about they're like, oh, they're just gonna bracket JSN. I was laughing. I'm like, oh yeah, that just solves everything. Just bracket JSN. You don't think the 15 defensive coordinators that faced the Seahawks this year didn't think of that
Until the Super Bowl,
until the
yeah,
Super
yeah.
Bowl? They didn't think of that.
Yeah, and
Oh
he only had
crap!
1,700 yards this year,
Yeah,
like,
like oh crap! Oh, just
didn't
so
think of that. Dude, it's like
double
shutting down
cover JSN.
Saquon.
That just solves all of our
It's
problems.
like, "Yeah, we're gonna load the box to stop Saquon. That'll solve all of our problems," and it's like, "Okay."
Like, come on, man. Like, no,
Yeah.
it's you know, like listen, JSN's unless JSN literally like doesn't show up to the stadium tomorrow, Michael.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, it's definitely it's
like Jerry Rice Jr. Basically, he like Jerry Rice Jr. Like,
So yeah, that it's really tough because I think I'm still gonna slightly I don't know, where would you favor Patriots defense for Seahawks offense?
well, I'm going to bring up something that no one wants to bring up because they think like it's fantasy football and not like real life football. Zach Charbonnet's injury, I think, is a bigger deal than people realize. And this is I'm going to give you my explanation for it. Against the Rams in the first quarter, Kenneth Walker, K9, he was cooking, Michael. It looked like he was going to have a big game. And then he looked like he just kind of like ran out of gas until the very end of the game, you know? Like he finished with like just barely above 60 rushing yards, but he had like 30 rushing yards in like the first quarter.
Yeah, he was hitting some big explosives, and then um, all of a sudden, like they just really started selling out and did a good job to stop the run, truly. And listen, it got them burnt because Darnold absolutely cooked the shit out of them, but they couldn't get him going. And like they run, I'm drawing a blank. Who's the other running back?
Malawi.
Uh, yeah, isn't there?
They also
Isn't
have Cam
there?
Akers.
That's not who I'm thinking of. Yeah, 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 George Holani was
Kalani,
who we
yeah.
were thinking. Yeah, yeah, that's the guy we were thinking of. And like he only got 3 carries for 4 yards. I mean, they just as a team, they rushed for 2.9 yards a carry, Seattle. And I think
Right.
New England can have that same somewhat similar success.
Right. But
Um,
then it's going to come down to basically the passing attack of Seattle. It's going to come down to the passing attack of Seattle versus the pass defense of the Patriots. Because if you
mhm.
look at the Patriots defense, like maybe like if you were to come up with a weakness potentially for their defense outside of Gonzo, you know,
The defensive backfield. Yeah.
defensive backfield, it's like average, above average ish,
Yeah.
including
It's nothing too
Gonzo.
much.
It's not like it's not the Legion of Boom, is what I'm saying. And listen, dude, Darnold's had such a weird season. Like in the beginning, he was cooking. Then
Yeah.
it looked like he turned into a pumpkin. And
Mhm.
now and then they've kind of adopted this like he was like a game manager for several weeks. Last week he wasn't a game manager. He was
Mhm.
slinging the rock very well, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna have to sling the rock to win this game, bro. Like he can't. They can't game man unless Drake May turns it over like 7 times or some absurd amount, like 4 or 5 times, and they just get like 2 or 3 short fields and they get touchdowns out
It
of it.
yeah, it does feel like this game is gonna because both these coaches have been very conservative all year. Both these coaches very much take the points, very much, field position, and I think special teams.
The Seahawks set a record for most field goals in a season by a
Yeah,
team.
special teams I really think is gonna play a factor. And, like, we know how much Rashid Shaheed can light it up with a big return. He's been doing it really since they acquired him with some big punt returns, some big end arounds, kick return, obviously, to start the Niner game, and it's like, that is definitely a weapon of theirs that while I don't think New England has bad special teams, it's just that Seattle's is like a legitimate weapon that can turn the tide of a game, a big punt return to set up a short field. Flipping to the other sides of the ball, and you have New England's offense against Seattle's defense. I it's really just all going to be about Drake May and the passing attack. I think Ramondre Stevenson has had an awesome playoff, and him not fumbling has been humongous because really Travion Henderson has been phased out of the offense because he just hasn't been playing well. Like straight up, has not been good. Um, like not seeing the holes well, not hitting the holes well. That was like his concern out of college. It was very similar to like DeAndre Swift out of college, where you look at the college highlights and you keep seeing all these big runs, these big home runs, and these big huge plays. And then you get to the pro level, and it's like, yeah, the vision is just like it's a work in progress. And Ramondre Stevenson has just been extremely efficient, and he's been very reliable. And the big issue with him has always been fumbles. He just can't. He's not holding on to the ball, and as of now, it seems like he's been holding on to the ball pretty well, and that's a huge plus for them. But the passing attack is really what's gonna need to be better. I mean, I have vision. Will Campbell's been atrocious this postseason. He's been getting beat by pretty much everybody, and I could very well see DeMarcus Lawrence causing some havoc, off the edge, and it's gonna just depend. Is Drake May, we know he's gonna wanna run, we know he's gonna wanna use his legs. Is he gonna be able to toe that line of he likes to hold the ball so he can deliver a throw in a big spot, but is he going to be able to toe that line without taking too many sacks like he has over the last few weeks? Is he gonna be more accurate on those dig routes? There was at least, I think, 3 to 4 passes over the middle against Denver that are open receivers running the dig, just straight up. They are open, and he just was worm burnering at them. He was throwing it low, he was missing the throws, and I don't think you're gonna be able to afford to make those mistakes this time around. I feel like you said, John, turnovers are gonna be huge in this game. If there are any, like, that probably feels like that could be enough to turn the tide against coaches that are very, conservative, very passive, that, a turnover leading to a short field and easy free points is gonna be pretty massive, a huge turnaround in this game. So, I think that Seattle's defense, while it's not, like, totally superstar studded and loaded with, like, crazy amounts of talent, I do think it's a really extremely well coached unit, and I think that Mike Macdonald is gonna put them in good enough positions to succeed against, Patriots receiving core that definitely has its question marks. It's been good all year because of how good Drake May's been, but hasn't been super reliable in terms of just guaranteeing that someone's gonna be open all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think kind of going just we'll move on to the inverse matchup. I think Clint Kubiak has done a tremendous job with Darnold in terms of maximizing the positives and hiding the negatives.
Right.
It does feel like on the biggest stage possible, I feel like Darnold's going to have to almost have a Nick Foles-ish type Super Bowl, I think, to win this game, because I don't think it's going to, like, I don't think he's just going to game manage. This isn't like 1975, is what I'm saying, where he's going to throw 15 passes and the Seahawks win the Super Bowl. I don't foresee that happening. I think he's going to have to sling it. Obviously, JSN, we know how great he is, and he's just so, like, if you basically throw in his general vicinity, he's going to come up with the ball somehow. We saw that crazy catch he had against the Rams, the one-hander going out of bounds.
Mhm.
Incredible player. Dude, like this the other, like, the supporting cast of the Seahawks, though, they're gonna have to step up. Like Cooper Kupp, everyone's kind of talking about him as a dark horse. Oh, Super Bowl MVP dark horse or dark horse guy to step up. I mean, Michael, not for nothing. He looks like he's lost a step. This isn't like the Cooper Kupp.
Of
Um,
course, but I mean,
this
listen, he
isn't like
had
Odell on the Rams 4 years ago,
no, but
where,
he had 4 catches and a touchdown in the Ram game, you know?
yeah, well, I think his first down wasn't a first down, and McVay just botched trying to challenge it. But
Regardless, I mean,
regardless, I'm just saying I don't.
caught a touchdown.
I mean, and then I guess Rashid Shaheed. I mean, is he? Do they? I mean, I think
He's
they
like
don't.
he's gonna get 1 deep ball, a couple end arounds, and be a factor in the return game.
Right, that's kind of
You know,
his role.
he
And
had
then it's
1
like AJ
target
Barner.
for yeah, or he had 3 targets, 1 catch for 51 yards, Rashid Shaheed. AJ Barner's had a very quiet postseason, was a big factor for them in the regular season. Be interesting to see if he can get himself off the ground again. Um, but like Jake Bobo, for example, like that's another guy that, 1 target, 1 catch for 17 yards and a touchdown or 2 targets. And uh, that's just kind of the way things go. You know what I mean? Someone's got to step up. Someone's got to be big. You want to win a Super Bowl in a game that's projected to be close. Something unprecedented needs to occur. Think back to Super Bowl 52. You think of Corey Clement. having a huge day, over 100 receiving yards, and it's like that's not something that anyone foresaw occurring. And it's always a little something like that, absolutely. But do we want to get into picking the games, or do we want to get into some fun props that we like?
I was going to say
Typical
we do
Super
the
Bowl props.
let's do the quickly do the inverse of the Patriots offense against the Seattle defense. You brought up a couple points. You
Hmm.
brought up like the Patriots offense, I think, like basically some of their weapons. I mean, no M and Worry. I mean, Tariq Woolen, I mean,
I
do
mean,
you
he's gonna play. He's just
oh,
not gonna be.
100%.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, after Tariq Woolen's kind of like meltdown, he kind of had the Rams game. If the Rams would have somehow won that game, Tariq Woolen would have been you would have been the scapegoat, I think, for that.
sure.
Well, I mean, how do you rate Witherspoon? Do you think he's an elite corner?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a very good player. Um, and did I wait a minute? Excuse me. Yeah, even Warrior's like that, like hybrid style player, and Witherspoon, he's very effective in the nickel as well. It's I think the secondary has, like, I think even Warrior and Witherspoon I think are really good. I think Woolen is like fine. He's not as good as he was a few years ago, but um I don't know. Like, I like that secondary against New England's receivers. I like most secondaries against New England's receivers. It really, to me, it's, are they going to be able to keep Drake May upright? And is Drake May going to look good? He's on a Trent Dilfer run right now, truly, in terms of output from the quarterback position. And it's no disrespect. I mean, I think he should have won MVP, but regardless, it's just for a guy that hasn't played good football in over a month, for him to have to snap out of it and play, a big game on the biggest stage. It's just it's a hard sell for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it was like Hunter Henry. I mean, it does feel like this Patriots offense is sort of like a ragtag team. You know what I mean? Like
Totally, totally.
total like a ragtag team, and then, gosh, man, I mean, how many Super Bowls does Josh McDaniels have as an assistant? Though
It's got a lot.
he's got to have at least three.
It's got more than that, right?
He's got six.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You owe
Yeah.
Brady a lot, man.
Uh, yeah, he's got six rings, dude. Like that.
He's not new to this, that's for sure.
He's
So
not new to this, so I do feel like from a preparation standpoint for New England, especially head coach like Vrabel, you know, like I think Vrabel's a pretty likable guy. The vibe I get, like he's a guy you can see why players love playing for
mhm.
him, and I think McDan like I almost said McDaniel McDonald. I don't know, man. I just feel like if the Patriots win, it's going to be because the Seahawks blow it, not necessarily the Patriots going out and taking it.
I could see that.
I mean, McDonald might has that Harbaugh gene potentially like lying dormant that we don't
I
know about.
guess, Jesus. What do you wanna get into? Do we wanna pick the game, wrap up?
What you said you have fun props, so like, what
Yeah,
were you?
like, over 2.5 players to throw a pass. That's hit in
Oh,
5 of the
okay.
last 9 Super Bowls. It hit last year. Kenny Pickett threw a pass in the game, as well as Jalen and Mahomes. It hit the year before. We all remember Jawan Jennings throwing a touchdown in Super Bowl 58. Super Bowl 56, both Joe Mixon and Cooper Kupp attempted a pass in that game. You think of Super Bowl 52, obviously. Trey Burton threw a pass, and was it Edelman threw a pass, the one that Brady dropped, and 2020 or Super Bowl 51, Edelman also threw a pass. So 5 of the last 9 Super Bowls, it's hit. And I look at these 2 teams, and while yes, they are passive, they are conservative guys, this feels like a game that can get muddy. And Well, yes, you could see I can visualize a trick play where Cooper Kupp throws a pass for the Seahawks or something. I could also see Vrabel maybe faking a punt somewhere along midfield and a punter throwing a pass potentially to try to sneak and steal a possession because I just think it's gonna be one of those games. I think it's gonna be truly, I think it's gonna be lower scoring, and I think it's gonna be
Here's a
tight.
fun stat. Here's a fun prop bet for the duel. Next gen stat: fastest offensive ball carrier recorded. Rashid Shaheed plus 420.
Yeah, it feels like listen, you gotta
He's
think who's a player that's gonna have a lot of space to run and get downhill. Like, if Travion Henderson breaks a run, it'll probably be him. If Rashid Shaheed returns a punt, and has a big return, it'll be him. If he catches or gets an end around or something, it'll probably be him. If Pop Douglas catches a pass and has like, room to run, it could be him. That's a fun one.
shortest touchdown scored over 1.5 yards plus 110. Under 1.5, i.e.,
A
is,
1 yard run.
is someone get a 1 yard tutty?
Yeah, that could be,
Seahawks, the Seahawks run the tush push, Michael, with AJ Barner.
Patriots run the tush push as well. Is I wonder if they have as like a like a non-offensive player scoring it or like a lineman because we know Vrabel caught a touchdown in a Super Bowl, so maybe Tonga gets a touchdown in a Super Bowl, or maybe Milton Williams gets a touch or something. That could be something potentially in play there. But yeah, just some little fun props. But why don't we pick the game here? Why don't we
Why
why
don't
don't we
we
get to it?
let us pick the game. So I'm gonna fade the public. I'm gonna take New England to cover.
Okay.
I'm taking
What's
New
your
England.
what's your score position? Score prediction, excuse me. Who's winning the game?
I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna say Patriots 27, Seahawks 24.
Almost the identical score to Super Bowl. What was it? 40, 49? Yeah, Super Bowl 49. Um,
It's gonna be either. I think what's gonna happen. Patriots kick a go-ahead field goal with like a minute 50 yet like left. Seattle has all their timeouts, and then Darnold throws an interception around like they're at midfield, and or you know what? He gets strip sacked by Milton Williams.
dude, God, that would be that would be crazy.
Don't
Who
you
is your
feel like a
super?
strip sack is way worse in that situation than a pick?
I mean, I'm not gonna measure the death of it all. It's all pretty terrible, I'd say. In that spot, taking a strip sack, throwing it, I'd be pretty distraught either way. I have to say. Who's your Super Bowl MVP prediction?
So my Super Bowl MVP prediction, I'm going to Drake May.
Drake May. To the point, makes sense. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take Seattle -4.5. I really wrestled with it, but I think I'm gonna land there. My final score prediction: give me the Seahawks 23, the Patriots 17. I think it's gonna be a lower scoring game. I think it's gonna be a little ugly. I think both quarterbacks could throw a pick in this game. And my Super Bowl MVP: give me Ernest Jones. I think that
Wow.
he's been all over the field in the playoffs thus far. He had a forced fumble and an interception against the 49ers. And excuse me, I can very well see him jumping something over the middle, trying to find Hunter Henry.
Pick
And
six.
depending on where it is on the field, could be a pick six, could be a pick
Nah,
six,
you're not going to give it. Yeah, I was going to say.
could be, uh, I could see New England potentially going in the red zone and Ernest Jones punches the ball out from Ramondre Stevenson, and he has the
Mm,
back-breaking fumble that they recover, or he has a scoop and score, something similar to that.
I
I don't think Darnold's going to have a good enough stat line to justify the MVP, and I think that there's going to be
I was
enough of a
thinking the same
splash on
thing.
defense.
My pick, actually, my dark horse pick for Super Bowl MVP, because you should go both ways on this game if you're going to do wagers. Do one for each team to win. My dark horse pick, I think, for Seattle to be the Super Bowl MVP, I'm going to say Rashid Shaheed, because I think if Seattle wins, it's going to be because of special teams, because that's what's special teams has set the tone for their last two playoff wins. If you think about it, they ran the kickoff back against the Niners, and then they got boat raced after that, And then, listen, the muffed punt by the Rams decided the game.
Yeah, it was a big moment.
And listen, I know no one gets a MVP for recovering a muffed punt, but I think Rashid Shaheed,
he'd have to have almost a multi-touchdown day, I'd say. He'd need
Well, I
like a
mean,
punt
Desmond
return
Howard won a
score.
Super Bowl MVP for the Packers, running a kickoff back, which decided the game against New
Yeah, I mean,
England.
I think it would depend.
He gets
Super Bowl
100.
MVP.
He gets 100 yards total on offense, rushing, receiving, and his score, and runs a punt back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that Desmond Howard had what did he have that year when he won it?
He was just a kick returner. It was just
I
that
want to know his stat line. What was that? Super Bowl what? Super Bowl
31.
Super Bowl 31. All right. Yeah, Desmond Howard. Potential. Desmond Howard that day had. God damn, so far down. He had no offensive. It was literally just special teams, huh? How about it? He had 4 kick returns for 154 yards and a touchdown, and he had 90 punt return yards. Like if Shaheed has like a return touchdown and then also has like 60 yards receiving and like 30 yards rushing and maybe a second offensive touchdown, yeah, I could absolutely see that. Listen, JSN is very much up for debate if Darnold throws for only like 220 yards and maybe a pick and a touchdown, but JSN has like 10 catches for $180 and a score like he similarly did against the Rams. I could see him getting that award too. But I do like a defensive player for Seattle to getting it done. I think about how much New England struggled on offense, and I just think that some big turnovers could swing the game if New England's defense does enough to kind of slow down Seattle's offense and not let anyone take it away. But those are our picks.
Those are our
That
picks.
is
That's our
our
show,
score.
everybody. We will see you. We'll catch you. Do you want to do a show
Next
early
week.
next week to talk
Well,
about the
we'll
bowl?
find next week, and then who knows? Maybe we'll be due for a hiatus, maybe a mental health break,
Yeah, I think a mental
depending on
health break
how
might be needed.
yeah, we'll
Anyway,
see. But
we'll
enjoy the
see.
Super Bowl
For the Super
tomorrow.
Bowl, everybody.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.